Sia to on his microphone and talk to me. Sia, could you please on your microphone and talk to me?
Sir,
Sia, hello?
hello, sir.
Yes, yes. Can you able to look into that screen? That
Yes,
welcome.
sir.
No, no, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
Okay, fine, fine. See, I'm just in the testing mode, so I just want you guys to respond to me quickly. Now again I'll ask you whether you can able to listen to me or not. So you please tell me whether you can able to listen to me or not. Can you listen to me now? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Can you listen to me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Okay. So just a moment. Just 2 minutes. Okay. Thank you very much for coming over here. In fact, since this is the virtual mode, even as I already told you that I'm not accustomed to this particular mode of teaching, but I cannot just go on with the PPTs because there are something there are some subjects which we cannot go completely on PPT. See, if I go on PPT, I can explain you, but I do not know to what extent that you have received it. So that is the reason I just wanted you to engage uh, in a much better way. So that is the reason I have shifted to this particular video teaching, because I may explain you, but maybe some of you might understand it, but not all the students. So that is the reason I just wanted to, even though there are certain challenges for me as well, to engage with this. If it is a studio kind of thing, we can easily go on with this. But given my limited resources, if I have to go in this particular way, it would be challenging. At the same time, I also understand that you might be having some challenges. So I want you to put the video in the landscape mode, so that you will have a complete picture of it if possible, and we will go on. Okay. Fine. Now, see, there are some forces that we deal in finite element method in general. You all know those forces because you have already gone through mechanics and strength of materials. You will be knowing what are those forces. Those forces are, firstly, the forces we encounter in finite element method. So what are those forces? The first one is the body force. First one is the body force. And the second one is traction force. I have left some space. I deliberately left that space so that while dealing with this, while discussing, we can fill that gap, what it is. Okay. And last one is point force, or we generally call it as point load. Hope you understand what I'm saying. So there are predominantly three forces in finite element method. Not just in finite element method, you all know all these forces, but we'll just revisit these forces one by one. Okay. So the first one is body force. So what is body force? See, all the natural forces which which occur in nature, all the forces which we see in nature, it's not the force that we apply, but the forces that inherently act on us by the nature are all, you can imagine those forces as body forces. So basically, body force is nothing but force acting per unit volume. This is force acting per unit volume. So these are the body forces, and body forces we call it as force. If I have to define the body force, then body force is nothing but force acting per unit volume. Okay. Now, can anybody just Ramchandra, on your microphone and talk to me, please.
Sir.
Is that clear to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. No issues, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So body force is force acting per unit volume, right? So what is force acting? What is the unit of force acting? It is Newton, right? So Newton. What is volume? Meter cube. So the unit of body force is Newton per meter cube. Now I'll just give you 1 minute, and you think for yourself, what is that body force that you observe in nature? What is the body force that you observe? It is force acting per unit volume. That means that particular force has to act on the whole volume of the body. Is there any such force? Can you imagine? I just give you another 30 seconds. Just go through it. Body force, because this is more important. These forces are very, very, very important to understand in finite element method. Not just in finite element method, you're supposed to know by this point of time. Okay, I hope you have, you might have thought, some of you might have got answer. I mean, you might got the, you know, what body force actually is. So I'll just give you examples of body force is gravitational force. Gravitational force. What is gravitational force? If I, can you see this chalk piece? If I drop this chalk piece, if I drop this chalk piece, if I drop this chalk piece, it falls down, right? Why is that? Why is that? Because you quickly tell me, not just you, any high school boy will tell me, okay, sir, there is gravitational force, and that is the reason this particular chalk piece is falling down when you leave it. Because as soon as I leave it, when I lift it, when I hold it here, I'm acting force on it, which is opposite to the gravitational pull of the earth. Now I leave it. What happens? I'm leaving it to the gravitational force. I'm leaving it to the gravitational field to act on it. So what I'm actually doing is, if I leave this, the gravity will act down, and that is the reason that particular chalk piece is going towards the gravitational attraction of the earth, right? And you all know this is high school physics. Now what I mean to tell you is, now you see, if I leave it, it's not like only one piece of chalk piece. Only one piece of chalk piece will be falling down, and one piece will be somewhere, or it will be in the same place where I left. No, the whole volume of the body will be under that particular, will be under the influence of that particular force. So gravitational force, you can call it as a body force. Why? If I go to the top of the hill, and if I jump over there, it's not like only my leg or my hand will fall to the center of the earth, or will fall, in other words, I should say, in general terms, will fall down. No, it will be the whole volume of the body, my whole entire body will be falling down, right? So this is an example of gravitational force, which is body force, right? This is the example of body force, which is gravitational force, right? So body force will act on the whole volume of the body. Now you can think of other examples. For example, if you are in water, and you observe that upward thrust or upward force on you, what is that force called? We call that particular force as buoyancy force. So buoyancy force is also body force. Why? It is not like when I just when I be in the water, it's not like only my hand or leg will be experiencing that upward force. It is the whole volume of the body will be having that upward force, and I can, obviously we all can feel it, right? So buoyancy force is also an example of body force. Similarly, you can have many other examples like magnetic force. Magnetic force is also an example of body force. Why? If you take a pin close to a magnet, what happens? The whole pin, it's not like only the head of the pin or the tip of the pin will be under the influence of that particular force. No, the whole volume will be sucked in, right? So magnetic force is also an example of body forces. And you see, all these are mostly natural forces, right? These are in nature. So body force is the force acting per unit volume. All these, and that is the reason it is called body force. Why? Because it acts on the whole body of the object. It's not like only one particular part. Okay. So quickly, let's move on to other forces. Fine. Okay, so what is the next force we're talking about? Which is traction force. Again, I'm leaving some space. Why? I'll tell you. Right? So this is traction force. What is traction force? So traction force is nothing but force acting per unit area. Force acting per unit area. So what is an example of this traction force? That force has to act on some particular area. What is an example? Again, I'll give you 30 seconds. You think of it. You will, you will know. Okay. So what is the example of traction force? All forces which we apply in engineering, or which we experience in engineering, problems. All forces which we experience in engineering problems. Like for example, you have a cylinder. Okay, you have a cylinder. Okay, you have a cylinder, and inside which there is a gas with high pressure. Okay, so what happens? The walls of this cylinder will experience pressure. What is pressure? What is pressure? Pressure is force per area. So all pressure forces. So what is that? It is acting on a wall. Wall is having certain area. So in this case, it is having a whole surface of the wall, right? So it is acting on surface. So it's a surface force. It is called traction force. So all pressure forces are surface or traction force. So that is the reason I have left this space. Traction or surface force, which is very important. Traction or surface force. So all the forces which we encounter in engineering are surface or traction forces, because we can apply force only on particular surface, on a particular boundary. So that is the reason we call these forces as surface or traction forces. Now, you can imagine, for example, if you have a bar like this, or a beam, let us suppose, and forces are acting on it. So what kind of force is that? What kind of force is that? It is surface or traction force. Okay, so this is So this is traction or surface force. Fine. Now what is the other force? What is the last force we have? That is, what is the last force we have? Which is point force, or also called as point load. Okay, let us quickly go through that. So the third one is point force or point load. Okay, so where do you experience this kind of forces? The name itself suggests, when you have a force acting at a particular point, we call that particular force as point force. So there is no force acting per something like that. You have a particular, say for example, you have a bar like this, and there is force acting at this particular point. So this force P is point load. This force P is point load, right? Or at this particular point, or at this particular point. So wherever you have a force acting at a certain region, very small region. See, if you consider the length, of this particular bar, the force at which, the region of force at which this P acting is very, very small compared to the length of the object, right? Compared to the length of the bar, right? So that is the reason, when compared to the length, if the force acts at a negligible portion of its length, or if it's area, you consider if it is area, then that force is called as point load. For example, let us take the same example which you have seen, the beam. If you have a beam like this, I told you that if force acts, this kind of force, we already discussed that it is traction or surface force, because this is the force acting per unit area. Now imagine, if I apply a force on this particular surface, if I apply a force like this, the downward force, this downward force, right? That force acting at a particular area, if I consider this area, then that would be traction or surface force. So most of the engineering problems that we encounter are surface or traction forces. Now again, so this is a surface or traction forces because it is acting on a considerable length of the beam. So it is not at a particular portion. Now let us suppose for this, suppose, let us say, let us take this, let us consider the beam again, and you take, for example, this is the force P. Then you never call this force as this particular force in the third example. You never consider this force as traction force, because when you consider the length, of this particular beam, this force is acting only at a very, very, very small portion. So I call this as point load. Hope you guys understand what I'm saying. So this is acting, when compared to the length, the force is acting only at a particular portion. So what are the engineering examples that we can think of? Example? Any example? So before going to the engineering example, you might be probably knowing, I just always wanted to quickly take examples from in our kitchen, in our bedroom, in our hall. I just wanted to take domestic examples. So you might be having your cloth hanger. So what is your cloth hanger look like? How does it look like? It will be having, right? So from which you will hang your clothes, right? So each and every point here, so your force, let us say this is your shirt or something. Let us say this is your shirt or something. So this is force acting P. At what point it is acting? But if you consider the length, if you consider this as the length of the hanger, then this force is acting at a particular point, because this shirt is actually stick to one particular point in the hanger. So this can be treated as point P, because we do not know what is the weight of this particular shirt. Similarly, let us say this is a pant or something like that. Let us say this is some P naught. Similarly, so on and so forth. So all these forces, P naught, P1, P2, all these are point loads, or we can also call it as point forces. But because we do not call, generally we say, whenever we say force, it seems to be like force acting on area, or if it is a body force, whole volume. In order to avoid that, we generally say, instead of saying force, we normally resort to calling it as load. So we call it as point load. Okay, hope you understand what I'm saying. Okay, so these are the three important predominant forces that we encounter in our engineering, I mean in our engineering problems, as well as in FEM. So I always want you to understand these three forces. So what are those three forces? What are these three forces? Body force, traction or surface force, and point load. I'm again reciting: body force, which acts on the whole volume, and that is the reason its unit is force acting per unit volume. We generally denote it with denoted by F, small f. See, denotion, it changes from textbook to textbook. It may change, so you don't forget, worry about that. But whatever we are denoting here, you just remember that. Okay, so for traction force is denoted by capital T. Traction force or surface force is denoted by capital T, and point load is denoted by P. Okay, so what is the unit of this traction or surface force? It is actually Newton per meter square, right? Fine. So what is the unit of this P? It is simply N. Why it is simply N? Because we are not considering any point at a particular point, at a very small point. So we don't necessarily have to consider its area, right? So point load is simply denoted by N. Okay, so these are the three predominant forces that we encounter in finite element method, and for example, and for that matter, in any engineering problem. And as I told you, that 80% or more than 80% of our syllabus consists of structural problems, right? More than 85%. So we are, see, right from the starting itself, we are interested to in dealing with structural problems itself. Okay, last one chapter or one, hardly, if I consider all this, last one chapter, yes, it is dedicated to heat transfer problems and vibration problems. Even that vibration is also comes under, again, it's a structural vibration. Okay, that, yeah, of course, that vibration can be caused by any thermal problem, or it could be either by structural also. But their vibrations is generally because of, mostly in engineering problems, we or in this particular syllabus, we consider that vibration problems are part of structural problems itself. Okay, so we have hardly half unit dedicated to heat transfer, right? How we deal those heat transfer problems, those lab problems, using finite element method. Okay, but we'll see. It's the end of the it's the end chapter. So we have got long time. So before that, we always have these structural problems. I do not know, but your syllabus for BTech, your syllabus has been predominantly framed in that way. Okay, so this is how we deal with finite element method, the forces that we deal in finite element method. So again, I'm telling you, these forces are very important. Body force is force acting per unit volume, and that is the reason unit is Newton per meter cube. Similarly, traction force is force acting per unit area. So that is the reason for traction force, it is force unit is force acting per unit area. Traction force is force acting per unit area. What is that area? It is surface. Let us suppose you push me. You push me. Where is the force acting? If you push me, if you push me with your hand, if I push you with my hand, where I'm applying the force? I'm applying the force on the boundary of the body. What is your boundary? It is nothing but your body surface. Your entire body surface is the boundary, right? So I'm applying the force on the surface. So that is force acting per unit area. That force is acting only at a particular area. Let us suppose, I'll tell you. In the previous lecture, I mean in the previous discussion, I told you that body force is force acting per unit volume, and that is the reason if I leave this chalk piece, it will fall down. If I leave this chalk piece, it will fall down, right? Because the force is acting on the whole volume. The force is acting on the whole volume. Now, if I say traction force, the force will not be acting on the whole volume, but the force is acting only at a certain area, certain portion, right? The force, let us say I'm applying force at this particular portion. You see this? The force is acting only at a particular portion. You see the difference? So the deformation will not be for the whole volume of the body, but the deformation only at a certain portion. Of course, the deformation even extend to the entire body, that's different. But basically what I mean to tell you is the force will act only on a particular surface. So all our engineering forces are surface or traction forces. You, as an example, we have seen the forces acting in a cylinder. The forces will act on the pressure molecules will exert some force on the walls of the cylinder, and it is having some area, surface area. So that is the reason we call those forces as traction or surface forces, or for example, the forces acting on beam and all that, right? So I hope you understand this, because I mean, I just wanted to, because this is the first class in a shifted mode. I'm not able to look at you, or you neither able to look at me. Because I do not know, in fact, until unless I'm on my recording, I do not know how this has gone, but hopefully I think it might have gone well. Okay, so before I complete, I just want to say something to you. Okay, we are eagerly looking forward to switch to classwork mode, but unfortunately we do not know when that happens. But before that, we have ample of time. To be very frank with you, we have lot of time left, and we do not want to be in a hurry mode, right? So if at all, if it is class, I may go in a much faster way, but we do not have to be, because we have ample amount of time. So let us go one by one. Okay, let us go in a very simple way, so that you you can be felt comfortable as well as me. And coming to this, I mean, I want, if possible, I just want to discuss how this particular course is going to be evaluated internally. You know, I mostly, I rely on my internal assessment rather than my mid marks. Okay, rather than your mid marks, I depend on my internal assessment. So each and every unit, after the completion of each and every unit, we'll be having a quiz. A quiz will comprise of 15 questions, and you have to give the answers for those questions. It's not like it has to be only 15 questions, but it might change, but not more than 15. Some units might have having 7 or 8 questions, or some units I may give around 15 questions, right? So it's like internal quiz. It's like an internal assessment. So based on that, your mid marks will be reflected. As you know, you can understand what I mean to say that, because this is recording, I cannot tell you everything. So that is it. So internal assessment is more important rather than the complete assessment. Okay. Ultimately, you have to go to the final assessment. That is different for the final exam. But before that, the internal assessment is very important. And I just want to know how you are actually catching up with the particular subject. But yes, when compared to other subjects, which are almost termed to be theoretical, this particular subject is something different, as you might have learned from me, or from your peers, or from your seniors, or whatever it is. This subject is actually require some work from your side. It's not like खाली हफ्ते में एक बार हम लोग कर लेंगे और बाकी सारी दिन बाकी सारी हफ्ते हम लोग ऐसे ही रहेंगे. नहीं नहीं, ऐसा कुछ नहीं होगा. You have to go to the entire I mean, you have to go every day, at least for 10 to 15 minutes. If not possible, at least 10 minutes. See, whatever you might be having time. See, for this particular subject, I'm saying, please take this as a suggestion. This subject requires the everyday refreshment. It's not like you understand or not, but just go through that. If possible, if time permits, I'll be discussing my experience of this particular subject when I was a student like you. That would be much more helpful to you. But yeah, we will see if the time permits, then definitely. But before that, let me tell you, do not think like, okay, these are having something. So do not come to that pre-assumption. Do not come to that conclusion at this initial stage that, okay, this subject is not good. No. Just by looking at the cover, you cannot judge the book. In the same way, just by looking at some equation or something, you cannot say the subject is bad or you cannot get into the subject. In fact, if that was the case, I could have never taught you this particular subject. That was my initial thought on this particular subject. I thought I could leave this subject because in those days we could leave two papers. We could leave 2 papers, but I didn't. I thought initially, but at the end of the semester, I didn't took that option, right? And that is the reason I'm here to teach you this particular subject. So I again want to thank all of you for making over here and have a good day. Thank you. We'll meet again tomorrow.